Okay, so welcome everyone from around the world to this concluding session, this gathering circle, to hear from each other and also to listen to the group's expression from its experiences in particular today. Perhaps we can join together in a brief alignment. So let's relax the physical body, feel comfortable in our environment, calm and serene. One-pointed and focused mentally in the Ajna center, and link up with one another as a group consciousness. And move back into the heart center in the head. To identify as a group conscious soul. Receptive to divine impression. Receptive to the expression of the group soul. And let us give thanks to the divine guidance, the divine purpose which brings us together. And to this group manifestation, sowing a seed in the heart of Europe for new beginnings as we move through the 3 spiritual festivals. And together in right relationship. And gently return to our normal focus. We would like to open this circle as a circle of elders to share with each other our thoughts, our impressions from the day's sharings, and questions, of course, and to allow the group to respond appropriately. I would like to offer and ask, if I may, Philip, to share a brief collage from the session of the council, to share with you the composition that we have put together for you.
Sure.
I'll put it on the screen.
Make it brief. So remember, we're going to another 50 minutes. So we have a lot of ground to cover today.
Understood.
Okay.
So this is simply the observations as a shared intent from the council session. In the flood tide of our growing awareness of the spiritual hierarchy, we the people invoke the spiritual healing, encouragement, and buoyancy of heart, the clarity of mind, and universal etheric vitality to manifest our esoteric role, our ashramic function, and the spiritual leadership needed to slow down the persona to achieve the note of loving kindness, simplicity, truth, security, wholeness, and goodwill to manifest and to embody the four freedoms and a unifying economy of the one life in the greater aura of the divine plan. So let it be in divine law and order. Thank you. Okay, so let us now move to the circle of sharing, the circle of elders, everyone present. Some guidelines can be appropriate as we communicate together in this particular way. And so I'd like to offer these suggestions. And if you would like to join with me, Alexander, perhaps to speak the Russian part of each of these statements, it would be a joy to share that together.
He's actually in the interpreter room now, speaking
Okay.
for the Russian speakers. So
That's fine. I'm sure we're all familiar with talking circles and the art of listening and sharing appropriately and holding the energy as a group. First of all, of course, we identify as one with the group, we the people here today. We in this circle as a one with Christ and the divine plan. We speak as the group and to the group as a one and not to any one individual. So as I speak, it is as best as I can be, speaking with the awareness of everyone present as a reflection of that one groupness that we are. We listen for the group and as the group. That is a sharing of our responsibility. I and the group are one. And let us offer this circle as elders of humanity on behalf of humanity with this awareness. Let us hold silence between anybody who chooses to speak. Give a moment to pause and reflect. And finally, everyone is welcome to share your thoughts, your impressions, your words. Briefly, perhaps less than 2 minutes would be a helpful guideline. Thank you. Okay, so the presentations today have been rich and filling in our awareness. Philip gave a presentation on Geneva, the healing of the planetary heart center. Dennis contributed global world meanings, followed by Philip with the seeds of the future mystery schools, the way of counsel, and the land of the long white cloud with Catherine. So let's open it up now. And I'm joined with Deborah, Lirita, Uta, and we will help to facilitate our group sharing. Please put your hand up or unmute as advised and or contribute in the chat box. Kathy Newburn, my apologies. Kathy, thank you for your contribution today.
I'll contribute. I'll begin. In the meditation, what I was impressed with were 3 to 4 words. One was brotherhood. The other one was, the next one was restoration. The third was unity. And the fourth was sovereignty. So those were mine.
Thank you, Lirita. That's beautiful. I missed one of those words: brotherhood, unity, sovereignty,
Restoration
restoration.
and sovereignty. And I also saw that, and I know, okay, I also saw that we're wrestling with the old blueprint of power over from the Piscean age. And that sitting above that now is a completely different way of being. And it is accessible, it's there. And the keys of those 4 words will lead to sovereignty, or those 3 words initially will lead to sovereignty.
Thank you, Lirita. Perhaps I could, yes, Uta,
Irina,
please.
I just see that Irina has raised her hand.
Would you like to unmute, Irina? Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. In the meditation that was facilitated by the USA group, the one that Lirata, or I'm sorry, is that right? Sometime I during the meditation experience things, and in this one there were 3 major lights coming through my, I don't know, upper level of the body, maybe crown chakra, maybe ajna, but they were spheres, and 3 spheres were present, and they emanated a golden color, very bright, and bluish with the purple swirls and tints. And The third one was a little bit mix of everything. Colors were melding and mingling, and I not sure because I meditating first time on this material so intently because I'm fairly new to these groups. Although I could say that these were the energies or lights and colors that were represented maybe by the soul collectives of those countries. It's assumption, but I kind of feel that it might be, or maybe it's something else. But they were mingling, which is very interesting. So thank you for that meditation, Loretta.
Jonathan and the group.
Yes, Philip.
I'm going to step in here and mention that we're going way too slow. We need to have input from the presenters in the day and not get caught up in too much meditation sharing, which can go on for hours, theoretically. So I'm just wondering also the clarification of what's going on in the breakout room with the Russian translation. Is there something simultaneous going on? Or are we going to get to that in a minute?
No, I explained, Philip, there was a confusion for them when they heard rooms. So they kept trying to open breakout rooms because the interpretation room wasn't open yet. So there's no breakout rooms happening. They're closed. And
Okay.
there's just
So,
Alexander is in the Russian
right.
or Russian English speaking for people who need the translation.
Right.
To
So I
follow.
need to clarify on behalf of the audience, because I'm not sure if the audience knows what's going on here, participants. And I think we need to cut to the chase a bit more quickly than this meditation sharing, frankly. So I would invite the speakers, presenters, and the participants for the day to bring forth some of the main harvested essential pearls, if you like, and share those and get a conversation going from there. We only have about 35 minutes left, and so far we've gone very slowly into and in somewhat confused fashion, I'm sorry, into this. So I'd like your feedback, Jonathan and Uta, about this.
Yes, it would be lovely to hear from the presenters today as to their thoughts and impressions, and to engage in that way. I welcome and invite you to contribute some of your impressions. That is a very good idea. Uta?
Yes, I would like to suggest maybe to show our cameras, that we have a little bit more of a sense of human togetherness.
It's not compulsory, of course, but you can if you want.
And Svetlana's hands up. So I believe
Yes.
she's going to speak in Russian. So if you want to understand her, you go to the interpretation room and Alexander will interpret.
Or perhaps Alexander can interpret straight across this line here with that.
He's already in the room. We went through this whole description of this process.
Well, I'm not sure if everyone can actually catch on, Mikhail.
I should, yeah,
Just trying to simplify things here.
I shared the screen and showed them what they needed to do. So if anybody is having a problem, just let me know.
Hello, dear friends. Alexander. Мне представляется, что наша конференция — это человечество в миниатюре. Здесь сливаются все энергии и проходят те самые 3 стадии, о которых я говорила в своем докладе. Сперва первые дня 2 у нас была ярко выраженная оппозиция.
of Leo, there was a directly expressed position of each side.
Сегодня Филипп утром задал точку
This
весов,
morning,
точку
Philip
равновесия.
voiced the point of equilibrium
И
of Libra.
сейчас мы в нее входим, погружаемся вот этим
And now
нашим
we merge,
разговором.
we enter
размышлением.
into this phase finally with this conversation.
Это точка, в которой это точка
This is the
работы
point
седьмого луча, как раз.
where the
Седьмой луч.
seventh ray works.
Это точка паузы,
This is the pause,
когда все энергии
when
уравновешиваются.
all energies come to equilibrium.
Для этого нам нужна интуиция.
For this, we require intuition.
Поэтому я думаю, что завтра
That's why I think tomorrow
мы должны найти это внутреннее
we
состояние
have to find this inner position
нашего
inner
объединенного
asana.
намерения
of our united intent
для того, чтобы потом эта точка была достигнута.
in order to reach this point afterwards.
Внутри сознания каждого,
Inside the consciousness of every one of us,
внутри
the consciousness of our small groups,
и внутри сознания нашей объединенной группы.
and inside the consciousness of our united group.
Я думаю, это прекрасное начало. Это семя,
I
которое уже
think it's a
посеяно.
beautiful beginning. It's a seed that went to the ground already.
Спасибо.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sveta. Would anyone like to respond to Sveta's remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Svetlana, for speaking up and giving us a vision of how we can move forward and where we are at the moment. Yes, I agree, we are on a very vital point now. We have put the conflict on the table. And this is the first stage of transforming conflict into harmony. We must become aware of, the Tibetan calls it, points of conflict, face them, and then if we can hold it as a group, it becomes a field of creative tension. It's a point of tension, Tibetan calls it. And this, when we can hold this as a group, then intuition can happen. Then we can raise the energy together, containing everything in this field, every viewpoint, even if it's difficult. And only then can we as a group raise it to the higher level, beyond the mental ping pong. And then we are also open to ashramic inspiration, and we can come to what the Tibetan calls the point of emergence. So I see this as really, we have yesterday and today dared to put things on the table with very strong, clear voices that are not easy to hear, but for me, it's a very important stage that we have reached, and there's a lot of hope in this, even though it's difficult. So I'm very curious to see how we continue holding this tension and reach together a higher point of synthesis, as long as it will take. I feel a lot of commitment from all parties here, and this is our hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Uta. And I also invite the presenters from the last couple of days, not just today, to chime in, because you've been an essential part of this meditation process throughout the last few days, and have unique perspectives, each one of you, to contribute.
The strongest impression I have in terms of the conflict that is on the table is to again go to the intended soul triangle between Russia, the United States, and Britain, and to really humbly invoke and ask to be guided by the meaning of the two Aquarian souls and the synthesizing Gemini soul, knowing that not one of those three nations is currently expressing its soul, but to explore, to be pioneers, moving into the energy of the soul. And those three souls have not only an ashramic connection, are not only rooted in the ashramic divine plan, but that we can be open and receptive to what it would look like if our respective national personas were guided by true infusion with the soul. And with respect to Russia and the United States, I go back to what Philip referenced, I believe yesterday, that the Aquarian labor of Hercules was diverting two rivers, perhaps spirit and matter or etheric substance, into the cleansing of the Augean stables, where the ruler of the time had not cleaned the stables ever, and that was poisoning the people and the land. And so if that flowing through, that cleansing, that Aquarian pouring forth of the waters of life for thirsty men and women, the people in our nations, those three nations, the people are not getting the benefit of the abundance of each of those nations. The people are starving for the waters of life, in my view. So that's my impression about this, to take this time in the festivals to truly humbly penetrate into the true Aquarian energy in that triangle that is embedded in the heart of the ashram. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Dennis,
Denise, yes.
can you go ahead, Dennis? Thank you. Can you hear us, Dennis?
May I just say that we do wish to hear from as many people as possible, and there is a time issue. Please keep to 1 or 2 minutes.
I was going to say the same
yes.
thing. Be
Thank you.
succinct your responses and to the point. Thank you. Dennis, go ahead.
I will try to be brief. I will repeat what Denis said. I'm sorry if what I presented earlier today caused any harm to anyone. I apologize if my presentation today caused any pain. For those who suffer for humanity, such presentation supposed to cause pain, but unfortunately, it's impossible without that. Today, Uta quoted at the beginning of the day. Quote what Tibetan mentioned about, like, was talking about the real love. He was talking that real love, it's not emotional. It's love that is healing. Love that healing the vehicles of the soul. And it's directed for achieving the goal. If we talk about nations, I think we should be sincere with each other and honest in a group, between each other, and as nations as a whole. Then we will, for sure, will achieve our goals. Then we will change the world. And will contribute. It's a Russian phrase that's in English sounds good, but in Russian sounds like strange, like bring peace to the world, because peace and world is the same word in Russian. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Judy, you have your hand up.
Go ahead, Judy.
Thank you for unmuting me. Today, when you spoke, Dennis, the thing that really struck me is how we can look at the same information and see it differently. And it's not that there's lie on either side, but that our interpretation of truth comes from a particular perspective. So today in Jonathan's meditation, when Andrea brought up the word trust, I thought in some ways that trust is almost more important than truth, because like seeing a part of the elephant, we have a perspective even when we come at something as souls. And so we only see the truth from as much of the observer as we can hold. And with Jonathan's meditation, to be able to go up to the point of synthesis really was very healing, because the one thing that is a fact is that I trust everybody in this group. I trust them to present truth as they know it and they see it. And what we have all in common is that we are here to be world servers and to synthesize a greater whole. So yes, I do feel that there's a lot of possibilities in this group getting together. And though we may interpret truth differently, I think the fact that we are all here as world servers and that we have a trust and a love in each other is what will get us through. So thank you for your perspective.
Thank you very much, Judy.
I'd like to follow that up briefly. Thank you, Judy. The words trust and authority, for me, they have deep meaning. Who do I serve? Who do I trust? I trust in the divine, unconditionally. But when it comes to our human relations, there's the struggle. And it comes down to something Lirita was sharing about this new frequency, this new idea. And it has to do with authority, or the root of that word is authorship. Who is the author of my experience? Who is the author of your experience? Of course, it's the soul. So these two words, trust and authorship, perhaps provide a new context. This is my impression I'd like to share.
And also at the expense of a bigger picture, it's not just about Russia and Ukraine, although of course we have emphasized this during the conference as one of the main schisms that needs to be healed. The split that needs to be healed into a scene, as Uta said originally. We have many other participating European countries at this conference, and we need to hear the voices of all those various nations. There are not many of them here, but we have representatives from several countries who can speak on behalf of, for instance, Germany or Italy, and so forth. And just to mention that. We don't have much time left, and we've hardly scraped the surface yet. So please, someone else who's not part of this current group now, please contribute what you have to say. Perhaps Alexander can, or any of the other presenters or participants.
Sabine has written something in the chat that I can just read out. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Svita. In a group, it is always at least one member who has a task to pronounce the uncomfortable aspects. This is the crack where the new light comes in, if there is reception for it. Becoming like children in the sense of listening without any pre-information would be a good practice to open up for never imagined aspects. Thank you very much, Sabine.
Alexander.
I don't know how it will work now because I have to switch between two booths. Does it work? Can you hear me in English? Nobody will translate me, so I will have to say it twice. What's just been shared, it's exactly the point, how we see the point of this conference. I say our group, ICAL group, and I mentioned it yesterday in my presentation. So I was very resistant to participate in it because I don't believe in the trying to find the truth through proving own truths, but through listening. What is important, and that's what is happening in these days of the conference, that we listen without arguing and accepting. And as what Judith just said, seeing the different perspectives. And that's pretty much that's our responsibility to do. And when we listen to each other without arguing or trying to prove our point, then through meditation, we have a chance to switch to the higher point, and together, and it's our responsibility as world service to see the more inclusive truth. And just one thing that I didn't find time to put in my conference because it was so jammed with many other things, but I think it's interesting perspective for the entire conversation is that anthropologists have a consensus about the origins of the Aryan tribes. And in the academic field, it's accepted that the space between Dnieper River and Volga River, that's where Russia and Ukraine, that's where the Aryan tribes coming from. So that's the place where the most battles happening now. So the crisis that we're dealing with is the crisis that's related to everyone. And so it just adds to the general perspective of that it's not just about Ukraine and Russia, of course not. Just for the sake of time, that's it. I will just briefly say the same in Russian, and then we'll go to the next.
It's important for us to realize that the way of counsel only works when the group participates. It grows through everyone being open and realizing that each one has a major piece of the entire puzzle to contribute.
And to add that the big gift from this conference for me so far is a recognition that we can internalize our observations. They're not foreign, distant, or separate from us as a group. That the more we can accept the appearance as our own manifestations, then we have the possibility to have a influence which is more significant than we may realize.
A.N. Antonella says, Blavatsky says different about the fifth Aryan race that began in the first Hindu subraces. This is correct. That's just a side sort of issue, really. In fact, the fifth subrace started more in the Caucasus region to the east of Ukraine. But this is an academic point. Is there anyone else there besides the wisdom group or any of us here now who would like to say something? I think
Karen has her hand up.
Thank you, Karen. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. As a Canadian, I have been extremely grateful for this conference. I have been distraught at what's happening to our world. And I'm particularly grateful to Alexandra Dennis and Svetlana, because they're so correct that the propaganda of our North American media and the brainwashing in our schools, and since a young child, has really contaminated our understanding of these countries. And as a second-ray person or a seventh-ray personality country with a second-ray soul, the sense I get is that what we need is compassionate collaboration with honesty and heart, and respect for the fact that, as a number of people have said, we've all been members of these other countries in other lifetimes. We have all been the perpetrators. We have all been the victims, and that we must come together with the higher perspective that we have been trained in to see the world from this higher perspective. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Anyone else?
Lynn.
Lynn, go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, hi. I just want to also express appreciation for the presentations. I mean, really heartfelt, deep, thoughtful presentations. One thing that I think is helpful in these process, the process is very important. It's essential how we go about communicating and how we go about dialoguing and exchanging ideas. But I think also the facts are important. You know, we're so inundated with propaganda, and there's so many distortions that I think getting to the facts the best that we can, an honest attempt to really determine the facts. You know, we're going to have different opinions, perspectives, maybe, but agreeing on what the facts are before then trying to harmonize one's perspective or opinions regarding those facts is very helpful.
Excellent comment, Lynn. The science of facts and, of course, the science of propaganda.
Yeah.
They'll be touching upon tomorrow in my talk. But in this few minutes we have left, let us listen to other voices that are waiting to put their hand up or in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah, I have something I'd like to share. I think, a lot of the animosity can be dissolved by having gratitude, because right now there are people across the world right now that are being ripped from their bodies, suffering, starving, and we have the ability to just communicate about that in this space. And I think if we, the idea of putting yourself in another person's shoes, people who are suffering right now have it a lot harder than us in this space with our discussions that seem challenging. And I think when we have that kind of sensitivity, and that's the understanding that all this suffering is happening and we're trying to alleviate suffering, trying to understand how people suffer, and then having sensitivity and empathy for their state of suffering is a good path to take. And the other thing is self-reflection. I have times where I'm challenged with in a relationship, and I spend a lot of time in my early development life in group therapy sessions, medicine circles, and talking about things and learning my own internal triggers. But when I get in an argument with somebody, you have the ability to say, I'm going to point at that person, or I'm going to listen to what I have been responsible for making this occur. And in real time, coming to that kind of state of self-reflection instead of, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they say when you have one finger pointing out, you have three fingers pointing back at you, because it's, this concept of, real-time self-reflection, because over these crisis points that we've had, I've seen a lot of, I need to prove myself. I need to prove this person's wrong. This person's wrong, instead of what does this person see? How do I exemplify the sensitivity I want in return? How do I exemplify the empathy I want in return? And to remember that, the Christ walked away from the Pharisees and the Pharaohs and went to the ghetto and connected with them and attempted, in my opinion, to exemplify that kind of connection. So I think if it's when you're drawing those connections between people, it's easier to have that heart in the head, or just heart and sensitivity when you're just saying, how do you feel? And I love you, and I appreciate you being in this space and sharing. I don't need to. So that's my sharing.
Thank you very much, Mikhail. We have two more comments in the feed, and I think after that we can probably wrap this up. Marco says, I would like to report one major shift in perspective I have to thank this conference for. So long I have longed for something recognized to be true to emerge from USA, and I had given up on it. Today, Kathy clearly pointed out to the higher side of the USA and demonstrated it in the spirit of her words. I found myself reconnecting to the USA emotionally as well as mentally. For that, I'm grateful. As many of us are here today, Kathy's talk was wonderful. And Athena says, the pain that is hidden in understanding, not in resistance, is felt even in the highest circles. It even reaches up to the word itself. But this is outside our subject and is almost incomprehensible to you, since you are still prisoners of matter. This is a quote from Letters on Occult Meditation. Thank you, Athena. I invite one or two closing comments here to finish our day, but also to know that we have other discussions tomorrow, that we can say what we didn't say today. John says the words truth and trust have the same origin. It is the word tree. Tree is one symbol of humanity.